welcome to It Happened on the Job, our podcast for relatable and hopefully entertaining conversations with contractors. We are episode 21, and with us today is Barry Durand, CEO of GS Homes. How you doing, Barry?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate you taking the time here.
My pleasure. What else am I going to
now?
Right. What else am I going to do here during quarantine?
Yeah.
Sheltering in place.
So give us a little background, a little history, kind of how you got started in the industry, and that road to where you're at now.
Okay. Currently, what I'm doing is I'm the CEO of GS Homes, which also goes by the DBA of Green System Solutions. And I actually started a little over 10 years ago in the solar industry, realistically moving to California to kind of make a life change, and answered some Craigslist ads, for solar sales guy, and it was one of those things where you think about it and go, gosh, this kind of makes sense. This is something that it's kind of funny in a roundabout way, because years ago, my first job out of college was to sell solar hot water heaters in Arizona. And it was just pretty interesting because back then, I'm riding around a little motorcycle with a fake little solar panel on my back to show people,
Look what I can do.
It was kind of funny. And it was, think about it, it's solar hot water heating in Arizona. Okay, you could just throw a garden hose up on the roof and it would heat up enough
yeah, right.
to take a shower, right? So it was kind of a no-brainer. And at that time, the government was had rebates and different things. And so I was in a sales organization. These guys kind of figured out that this is a good model for sales organization. And so I learned the tricks of the trade. But, we all wanted solar electricity. We all kind of said, hey, the solar electricity is where it's at. They've got it on the satellites, why not on homes? And It just wasn't happening back then. But, full circle later, here I am in California seeing ads for solar electric salesmen. And I'm like, okay, it's about time, right?
Right, yeah.
So I basically just started in the industry 10 years ago and have been working on it ever since. So
how did you, what transitioned you from just a sales guy to, did you just kind of move your way up in a couple companies? And
yeah, basically, this is one of those things and because I come from a background also of having owned several businesses, I was in the restaurant business, the nightclub business, event production. I owned a magazine for a short while. So coming from business and then going in and really just taking a regular sales job was quite a transition.
Yeah, shock. Yeah.
But, I had some money and I was thinking, it may take a little bit, but I'll figure it out. Here I am, an older guy with all these 21, 22-year-olds that are all being pushed gung-ho for a sales procedure on how to sell solar 10 years ago. And it was a lot different 10 years ago than it is now.
Sure.
Even in a sales perspective, everybody was doing leasing, and, even here in California, it would cost more per month to go solar than it was for your electric bill. And even if it was only $20 a month more, you had to educate a consumer that, hey, it's A, good for the planet, B, good for your pocketbook in the future because your bill never goes up again and, utilities go up. And we went through all that process. But nowadays, with financing and everything that exists, homeowners can go solar and it's already cheaper than their bill when they first start.
Yeah, I think we've had it for a little over 2 years now on our house, and we'd have some months in the summer, and then we go kind of big at Christmas time, and before LED lights, that was a huge draw in the Christmas time too. But yeah, I mean, our bills in the summertime $400 or $500, and now we're financing and our finance payments right around $200. So it just makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's So
It's
that
a lot easier now. But I feel like the government's not doing as many rebates anymore, though, right? So it's probably a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's what we had that in the past. It wasn't just the government. The government rebate. It hasn't been a rebate. It was a tax credit. That's still there.
Right.
But the utilities used to have rebates, and so they don't have rebates anymore. The utilities, other than for energy storage, but just for solar panels, no. But it still doesn't matter because 10 years ago, for instance, Southern California Edison, the price was probably half of what it is today. So, everybody's realized that, hey, maybe they should have done it back then. Or if not, if we've already been doubling in the past 10 years, what do you think we're going to do in the next 10, right?
Right. So kind of walk me through, your process now or your business now. Are you guys strictly residential solar, or is there other aspects of the job you guys do as well, or?
Well, that's why GS Homes, which is more of our residential end of things, and we also go by Green System Solutions or Green Systems, because our commercial division, which really in my background, I was working with, as I kind of told you, with a couple of companies. I'd worked with American Solar Direct and Solar City, and one of the things that in transitions, I had moved into management pretty much right away, and then went into the commercial division. Well, then some of the companies kind of went by the wayside. So here at GS Homes and Green Systems, I concentrate on the commercial end of things. However, we do quite a bit of residential as well. So we're involved in solar, of course. We're doing roofing, HVAC, batteries and storage. Basically, we can do almost anything.
Wow. Yeah. So are you guys self-performing a lot of that stuff, or do you sub out some of the stuff that's not solar, or?
We sub out some of the stuff.
Yeah.
We have some subs that work with us all the time. And, we did come from a company that's a nationwide company. So we have the buying power of the nationwide company that's been there for 11 years. And, when they kind of put me in charge of this California branch, what I handle is the entire state of California plus all the commercial, including nationwide. So I've got some commercial in Florida and Wisconsin and different places. But, we are solar experts, but like right now I've got a huge apartment complex down in Westminster I'm doing for roofing, and roofing and solar. So it's one of those things that ties together nicely because you got to have a good roof to be able to put solar on it, right?
Right. So, and I'm seeing, and maybe you can kind of just give us a little insight on this as far as how you guys are involved, but I'm seeing that solar is kind of being included a lot more in new construction, especially like on the tract home side. Is that something that's becoming more popular or more prevalent in the industry?
Well, the funny part is it's mandatory now.
Really?
No kidding.
That's the reason. It's that the state of California has said, hey, if you're going to put in new construction, you have to have solar, a certain amount. It's like not a huge amount.
Right.
So commercial and residential, all the new builds are going to have solar.
Oh, wow.
And so, so all of the tract homes are putting in the minimum they can. And right now I'm doing several commercial projects that, they had to hit their minimums.
Required, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is that minimum right now?
Yeah, how do they figure that out?
It's different for different projects, whether it's commercial or residential. But I think it's basically considered. I really would have to look up the
I'm sure they use some sort of calculation in square footage, right?
It's based on square footage of the roof, and then there's certain things based on the size of the building. So
interesting.
So being involved, I'm sure, I don't know if you realize we're on the insurance side, right? So solar and roofing is kind of one of those taboo or harder to place kind of thing. So one thing that always kind of fascinates me is the employee training and where you're finding these guys. How are you guys, bringing on people, training them, making sure that they're the right people and obviously from a safety standpoint as well?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things too, dealing with subcontractors that are fully licensed and vetted means we can trust on our major people that we trust. So for instance, the roofing team that I have at this apartment complex, they're all belted in, and this was an actually kind of a difficult job, steep roof. It is just an overlay, but still a very difficult kind of job, and these guys really do it well. I had some guy do video footage, and it looked great. So it's just we vetted our subs, the people that we work with that are our own solar installers. They have to go through training. They have to go through updates, continuing education, whether it's for batteries or whether it's for the inverters. They just have to keep up with it.
Yeah. So is there somewhere are you guys doing a lot of that training inside? Do you guys send them somewhere to do a lot of that training? How are you guys getting them if somebody comes in brand new, or I guess first, if we go back even further, are you hiring people that don't have any experience at all? And then how are you training? Or are you looking for guys with experience? And then
we're not courses. Yeah, we're not starting with people that are cold. There are quite a few people out there. Think about how many solar companies have existed in California. Right. So there's a lot of people that actually know how to do solar. It is kind of funny that in our national company, sometimes we're just dealing with electricians who've never done solar, but they're electricians. And so we literally will get on a Zoom meeting with them and go over training of just the simple pieces they don't know.
Right, the solar aspect of it.
Yeah. And so otherwise there are training. So if we're dealing with Generac generators, there's a course they can go through. And same thing with Solar Edge, so.
I have to imagine that's kind of the tough thing about solar too, right? Is you got to have part of your crew that's really good at the roofing aspect, right, as far as the installation, and the other part of your crew that's really good at the electrical aspect as far as hooking up the system. So it's kind of two.
It's two separate crews.
Yeah,
two separate pieces of expertise.
Yeah.
My roofing crews could do actual installation of solar panels. They know how to do the mounting of the feet, but they aren't the people that are going to do the electrical.
Hooking up the system. Yeah.
And same thing with our guys that do electrical or do solar installation. They actually do know quite a bit about roofing, but it's still better to deal with experts.
Yeah. Well, and you limit your liability there too when you're using the right guy for the right job.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's why we sign them up so they can sign their life away.
Get them on their own insurance, right?
That's right. Well, the thing is, it's covered by our insurance and their insurance, so the customer is going to be happy no matter what.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of moving through the process a little bit. Are you? I mean, what's your situation right now with everything that we're going through? I think one guy kind of called it our social experiment right now. Are you guys seeing much work right now, or job bidding, forecasting out? Just how's it working out for you guys?
It's a little difficult. I mean, the biggest issue we have right now is that we have quite a few jobs going, but permitting's been crazy, because
nobody's in the office, huh?
Yeah, well, that's it. They aren't allowed to be. They're sheltering at home, and so everybody's doing things, or it might be a minimal crew in an office, and so you're dealing with people having to do things in an unusual manner. Everything's being done by DocuSign, and we're sending things through. I mean, I even at the beginning of this process on that apartment building complex I was talking about, I had to get this permit before we could start the roof, and I had to finish the solar permit, and they had everything, and they just didn't want to give me the paper, but they had to give me the paper. So they actually arranged for me to go to the office, and they cracked open the door and slid the plans. That's what it was.
That was probably the coolest permit you've ever pulled, right? It felt real top secret.
I did. I felt like I was in the CIA, It was pretty cool. But they were, this was sort of at the beginning of the, pandemic. So everybody was, we're all scared, but we're all dealing with it, and we all have process. And so we're more comfortable with the process now. But
yeah, we kind of felt that as well. I mean, we only work with contractors, so it was, you kind of felt that first couple of weeks, everybody just kind of like froze, right? Like a turtle back into their shell, just kind of like, oh gosh, what do I do? But then as the weeks have gone on, I feel like more and more people are getting a little bit more comfortable and a little bit, and whether it's comfortability or just finding a way out of necessity to
the new normal,
go back to their way of life in some way, shape, or form.
I think it is the new normal, and I think that's how we're going to have to think of it. And everybody that talks about going back and getting things opened up right away, that's just not the smartest move. So if we're used to the new normal now, and we have to understand,
find a way to make it work.
The permits are going to take longer.
Yep.
Construction is still outside, and construction can be dealing with social distancing while they're doing their job, and they're not confined to an office. So it hasn't slowed construction down, I don't believe, except for the permitting process and anything that required, really just that. I think mostly the permitting. So our business is still going. What was fun to see is the parent company of my business was built on a sales organization nationwide with subcontractors dealing with solar, installing solar, and selling it over the phone and on the internet for the past 6 years. So we would install 1,000, 1,500 systems per year on the phone. Like it amazed me when I first came to the company, because I came from training salespeople, people that were in the home.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all these people sitting on the phone and looking on their computer and sharing screens and selling solar over the phone. And I couldn't believe it. It was a miracle to me. I just couldn't believe it. But the company was hitting a niche where these are farmers and people out in the middle of nowhere that don't have access to solar sales guys.
Yeah.
So we're not as hit as hard, from these other sales organizations or other people selling solar that are used to going in the house. Right. We're used to not being in the house.
We've already got the system built. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Thank God, too, right?
Yeah. Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been helpful. It's been helpful for us. I also because I run the local as well. All of our salespeople are just like, there's nobody that wants them in the house. So those guys are all on vacation, basically. They're not happy. I mean, there are certain industries that are hit really hard.
Yeah.
And we're just lucky that we can do this on the phone as well.
Right. Are you seeing, bidding or future work kind of slow down or be a little bit more sluggish and moving along the bidding process from the commercial side?
Let's put that in perspective. Commercial, bidding, and slow. Those three words exist together.
Do they already go together
all the time? Yes. So to go from slow to what? Barely moving. Yeah.
It's about the same.
It's all the same. Yeah, we're used to slow. We really are. So no, I've actually not found that there's been a problem. So all of my commercial jobs are just moving along. The only thing that will occur is a slowdown for permitting. That's it. Right now, they're willing to get things out. I do see a little bit of. We're going to have a gap here in a little bit because we aren't selling as much right now. We're not starting as many jobs due to the offices being closed, and those are the people we deal with. And it's not just straight bidding. Lots of times it's getting to the CFOs and COOs and people that we have to sell to and trying to get them to do something. That's pretty slow right now.
Yeah.
So that's just probably more on the commercial side, right, than the residential?
Correct. Residential, it's just about they don't want someone in their house.
Right. So are you guys kind of coming to the end of your run here on the residential stuff? From kind of when it started to, or is there?
As far as I think there'll be remember for our national stuff, it's not a problem so much, but it did slow down. But the people for all the local jobs, for all of our people that go in the house, and we're going to have a gap here.
A little bit of a gap, yeah.
We're going to have a gap until people start to get back into the transition. But again, everyone understands right now the tax credits drop to 26% for this year. It drops down next year, and then it goes away. So people are starting to still understand that they need, if they're going to do solar, they got to get it done. And once they get a handle on being on our new normal, right? Then they'll get back into it and they'll figure it out,
Yeah.
So kind of, take this situation out of the equation, because obviously there's a number of hurdles you got to clear when you're, when we're in the situation we're in now, but kind of just, think back 6 months ago on a day-to-day basis. What are some of the kind of the biggest hurdles you guys face from a management standpoint on a day-to-day basis, whether it's, employees or whatever it is? Something
I think that this has kind of been the downfall of a couple of larger companies I've worked for. Solar, there's kind of two levels of where people are with solar. There are companies that were just electric companies, just electricians that said, we're going to go ahead and add solar because we know how to do electric.
Right. But
then there are sales organizations that developed solar sales and then decided to learn how to install it. And it was more about being solar sales than it was about the electricians.
Right.
And so the major companies, any of the major players, all developed around sales teams. Well, the thing that fell apart was customer service. And so you'd get all this stuff sold, but you wouldn't have as much contact with the customers as was necessary. And the same thing, not just from the salesperson, but from the project manager standpoint. And the customers, they get all excited when they've made the decision, they pull the trigger on solar. And if you don't manage the expectations correctly as a salesperson, you're going to get these customers that are bugging you all the time because it's a hurry up and wait process no matter what it is. Right. You sign a contract and you finish your financing and then you hurry up and wait. It's just like never happens quickly. And so over the years, I mean, look, I've actually had a project that got done in 12 days from signing of the contract to on the roof. That was a miracle. That was a miracle. But most of the time, it would take 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It was a lot worse years ago when we would say, look, it's going to be 3-4 months before your system's turned on. Well, that whole 3 or 4 months, somebody already pulled the trigger on something they're excited about, and now it's just nobody ever talks to them, and they don't know what's going on.
Right.
And that was the downfall of, I believe, all of the major solar companies that had an issue. So it's up to the project managers, it's up to the salespeople, it's up to whatever they're using for their CRM to stay on top of it, so that customers are engaged at least on a weekly basis to know, hey,
the process.
That's all it takes is an email or a phone call. So that was the biggest challenge that I see that I've addressed in my own company, and I stay on top of it. I'm making sure the project managers are putting notes in and calling the people or texting them now or emailing them.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, that's the hardest part right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you say customer service, because it made me think of, the only issue we had with our solar. It wasn't we did have that waiting process, and that wasn't a big deal to me. I knew it would take a little bit of time, but and I think this might be, kind of like you were saying with some of those other companies where they had multiple layers, right? There was one sales organization, and then there was another company that did the install, and then there was another company that, then you're dealing with the electric company as far as, maintaining it or, truing up and all that. So there's so many different layers that from a customer standpoint, it can be kind of overwhelming. But lost in that was any sort of, for ours personally, just a little personal story that we lost in that whole process was anybody telling us about the system itself and what may or may not happen and how to fix things when it does happen. So we sat for 9 months, shortly after we turned it on, something went wrong with the inverter, a part in the inverter. And we sat with for 9 months without producing electricity. So we got our true up at the end of the year.
You didn't know, right?
Yeah, we had no idea. Got our true up at the end of the year, and it was like $6,000 that we owed because we weren't paying anything, the electric bill. And so the electric company came and said, "Hey, you owe us $6,000." And we're like, "No." We finally figured out that the inverter wasn't working, and obviously they came back and fixed it, and these guys made right, and they made that payment to the electric company. But just we there was apparently some sort of app or something that was supposed to alert us, and we had no idea about any of that. It was just, I think, like you said, to your point, without that oversight or somebody maintaining that relationship, that piece of it for us personally kind of got lost in those multiple layers. One guy thought the other guy did it, and the other team thought the other team did it. So it was just kind of an unfortunate situation.
And I think that's education of the customer, which needs to happen several times, because the salesperson, like I said, I've been a sales trainer. I've trained the salespeople or consultant to manage the expectations, to explain everything correctly, but they're not going to remember. So the project manager also has to be able to stay on top of that, to be able to make sure that no matter what, they understand. And then when they still forget, they need to call in customer service, and that needs to be easy. Right. Then customer service can look things up. So for instance, like in your dilemma, this happens two different ways. Yours was just because it was an oversight. It was something you didn't know. Okay. That's horrible, but that does happen, Right. There are some customers that are just, I don't want to say stupid, but they just don't get it. So like I had a customer, a doctor and his wife, and I wanted to put a 6 kilowatt system on their home, which would take care of most of their energy. And the cost per month seemed too high for them. So the wife talked me into a 3 kilowatt, and the husband agreed. And I said, okay, you're only taking care of half your bill. Don't, you're going to have a true up at the end. So a year goes by. And the thing is that, even with a smaller system than they needed, in the great months, like in March, April, May, where the system will overproduce based on the amount of power you actually use, because most people don't use much March, April, May because there's no air conditioning, right? Yeah. And so those are our best months when we do overproduction. Well, here's this guy gets his bill back, from SCE or the wife, and looks at it. Back in those days, it was only like $1, $2. That was back before they had like a $10 minimum, and they're like, "Hey, my bill's $1. How cool is that?" But they're not looking at the rest of the bill where it says they have something to pay.
The true up, the
true up, and then the next month comes, the next month comes, they're each $1, and finally they're looking in June or July, going, "Hey, my bill's only $1. I'm just going to turn on the air conditioning and cool all of Alhambra or something." I mean, it's like they just don't get it, and then all of a sudden there's a true up for $2,000-3,000 at the end of the year. And they call me upset, and I said, "Sir, look, you are a doctor. You understood everything I said. You were only going to cover half your bill." Yeah. And once he understood
we're paying it, that's part of our situation too. Is we told the guy when we were being sold and purchasing it, like he said, "Hey, here's the number of panels or whatever that would cover your bill." Plus probably whatever 3 to 5% or however much they buffered up a little bit. And I looked at the guy and I said, "Look, if I'm going solar and you're telling me it's $7 or $8 a month per panel more, from a financing standpoint, give me a couple more, because I'm a little bit more, I'm going to live a little bit more comfortably if I'm going to, you know what I mean?" So so that's the thing, is when we went through these 8 or 9 months without producing anything, and we had the thermostat at 72, 73 because we were living comfortably.
Oh gosh,
it was not a fun.
Yeah, so that's the expectation end. That's where the salesperson has to do the expectation part. But even then, it's still up to the project management or customer service. And for instance, in I guess in some of the matters for monitoring, so we really have to explain the monitoring, right? And they also have to know and really we've changed. You know how the true up was at the end of the year, right? That's what you went through.
Right.
So they still have that option, but there's an option where it allows you to pay every month, like for SCE, and we encourage everybody to pay every month, even if
that way you don't get hit by that. Yeah.
Well, that way you know the first month that that it's not working. If you happen to not gotten any kind of an email from Solar Edge
notification,
right. If you didn't get that, then or you didn't.
Well, that's the thing too. Is part of that process of they never put our information in the system. So when we had this issue and they took down my information, the next day I got an email that says, "Oh, your solar's not working." Well, thanks. Yeah. So I mean, all to say, obviously everything's fixed, and I don't want to talk about. Obviously, I didn't say their name, so I won't talk really about them anyway. They fixed it. So, but to your point of customer expectation and that communication process, I think that's.
I think that's key, and that's what I've instilled in all of my people, and that's what we work with. I think as a salesperson that I was, and a sales trainer, the biggest problem we have is if they don't have good customer service, how are we going to get referrals? Right. And we want people like you to say, gosh, my bill used to be $400 in the summer. Now it's $52.
Especially in an industry, like you said, where there's so many other competitors out there, right? I mean, that's all you have is your customer's word.
It's the best. Customers' word of mouth is the best. So, that's how our business is really working to build its base, is by customer service and testimonials. And, we're doing videos and, making sure everybody's happy, even up to my level, myself or the RME, we're calling these customers as they go along, just touching base and saying, hey, how's it going? Have you heard from your project manager lately? Whatever his name is, we're trying to keep things working along. And do you have any questions? And then they come up with some strange questions that, is solar going to allow us to be, listened to by aliens? Or
I mean, the obvious answer is yes, right?
It is, of course. And I only say that because I was joking one time when I was being trained, and I'm driving along, and my sales manager calls me because he was in a house with a new sales guy talking to a lady, and the reason she didn't want to go solar is she was sure that these panels put them in connection with an alien invasion. And because I was talking to him, I said, there's no objection that we don't have an answer for it until he came.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, this one worked. Anyway, it was
how do you prove that one? How do you debunk that one?
Yeah, I'm lost on that one. Actually, nothing I can do. Call the guys in the clean white coats.
That's awesome.
I know. That was kind of fun. But, it's served for sales training, for the future. Here's one you can't debunk, right?
Right. Well, and I think part of it too is to that point I was going to say earlier is an education of your customer too, right? Because I mean, solar is relatively new. I don't want to say new, but relatively new to the industry. So, and I think there's a lot of people out there that just still don't understand how it works or what the reasoning. You know what I mean? Like somebody goes to buy a T-shirt, they know what a T-shirt is, they know how to use a T-shirt, they know where to find them, right? Somebody they may not be so versed on solar. So, how are you guys? I mean, obviously there's a training aspect, but is there your sales guys have scripts, or what are they? The training.
It's changed. It's changed quite a bit. When I started 10 years ago, it was totally educating the customer. You're totally educating them about solar, period.
Yeah.
And that was for 5 years or so, But starting about 4 years ago, the internet, the internet came out, and everybody thinks they know everything about it. They can just look it up. Right? And so some of the stuff was crazy and not true. Some of the stuff they just misinterpret. So now it's not about education as much. Okay. It used to be 100% education. And now it's more of, okay, I know about solar. I know about these different panels. I know about inverters. They actually know what an inverter is, right? So things are a little different now, and they think it's just about price, all right? And then you have to explain to them the finesse the differences between the panels and finesse the differences between a microinverter or a string inverter, and give them that part of the education. And then mostly it's about how good is your company? What have you done? How is your customer service? That's what it really boils down to now, compared to 10 years ago when nobody knew anything and you would just spoon feed them about the education part,
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like you said, the all-knowing internet and the
and everything you read on the internet is true, right?
100%.
Totally.
100%.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly. So
from a commercial standpoint, this is more just for an entertainment sake. But what are some any cool, fascinating, fun? What's the coolest commercial job? Residential, I have to assume they're all pretty much the same, right? You jump up on the roof, throw a few panels up.
Unless you have aliens.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I can tell you a funny residential story.
Let's hear that too, then. Sure.
I had a customer that was in Pasadena on a hill, overlooking a golf course, beautiful home, and we were putting solar on the side of the hill. Where basically you can't see it.
Right. Right.
But it was a pretty steep side of the hill, and so he wanted us to get rid of all the weeds and everything first, and then put down a weed stop, and just do things to make sure it didn't bother it later. So our installers are cutting down all the weeds.
So now you're landscapers too. You're roofers, electricians, and landscapers.
And we tried to explain to the guy that leave the weeds there because the roots will hold the soil.
Just strengthen
and it'll
everything.
keep from erosion. It's still better. Because they weren't tall weeds, they wouldn't bother it. Anyway, so we get down to just mud, and we're we do what we have to do, but the guy's doing the installation, and he's got the he's got the racks up, and I'm videotaping, right? Just because it's what I do sometimes, try to get these things. And I'm looking at him. He's at the top of the hill, at the top of the rack. And then the next second, he's gone. He's at the bottom of the rack. He had slid underneath the whole set of panels. He starts rolling down the hill. I mean, what are you going to do, right? It was, and I had it on video, at least the first part where he disappeared.
He gone.
That's right. He got back up and kept going, but it was kind of funny. He said, "You didn't get that on video, did you?"
Sure did. Guess what's getting played at the next company picnic?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But commercials pretty standard. I have to say that's one that we're dealing with right now with a steep roof. There's nothing funny about it. And we've got a high school that we're dealing with some shade structures. So commercials just straight ahead, not so funny.
No cool fun sports venues or big.
No, we haven't done any of those yet. So, we're working our way up to it. Yeah. The high school that we've got coming up is going to be a nice job. And
I feel like those are becoming more and more popular.
If you look, it's everywhere. Yeah. So the parking structure concept. I mean, let's face it. It makes sense to put solar up and create a shade structure for your people, right? Yeah. So, and there is something right now that any people thinking about commercial, if they through you or whatever, if they want to contact me, there's a feed-in tariff for LADWP right now, which LADWP has a program that they'll buy the power from you. So
really,
they'll pay a decent amount, like 14 cents a kilowatt hour. So it behooves a group of, let's say we've got a factory or a warehouse or something that only needs a 30 kilowatt system, but can fit 130 kilowatts.
Right.
They can put a 100 kilowatt system in there and make a contract for 20 years to sell it back to LADWP, paying off their system in like 4 or 5 years, and all the rest is pure profit.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. And there's still, I think 50 or 60 megawatts available. I don't remember, but it's quite a bit. So it's kind of an under the radar thing that only the industry knows about. Yeah. And there's only just kind of a few people that are taking advantage of it, but it's really a good process in LADWP, only in LADWP. So that would mean like a school. Well, we've got a couple of schools that don't have shade structures. Well, they don't need 200 kilowatts. They might only need 100. Well, we're explaining to them, if you put up 200 kilowatts worth, you can get this free shade structure.
Yeah. Well, in 3 months of the year, the 3 hottest months of the year, they're not using as much power anyway, right? I mean,
well, let's say they need 100 kilowatts. We put in 200 kilowatts. They're using the 100 kilowatts. The extra 100 kilowatts, they're just selling that power back.
Yeah,
and then it pays for just an income generator for them, and pays for their shade structure. So it's hard because if you're dealing with schools and such, there's so much rigmarole. It's tough.
Yeah.
Well, and I got to imagine too, they don't, from an entrepreneurial business standpoint, they might not be able to pick up on that as quickly as you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit more difficult.
And you'll have one person who does.
Yeah.
You'll have one guy there that we call him the champion. You'll have one guy there that does, and then try to explain it to the board, and they're like, "Wait, I'm going to spend
that doesn't fit in my box."
No, I'm going to spend an extra $200,000 to make $20,000 a year, but there's that, and then you know what I mean. It's like they don't get it, but
they got a re-election. They don't want to be the guy that spent the money when they got election year.
It's a good point.
Yeah. They're not concerned about 6 years from now when they're not on the board anymore and they're making money.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Although I do have one school that's actually considers it that way. Now the guy's been there for 30 years and probably thinks he's going to be there another 30 years.
Right.
Very possible. But still, they're looking forward to that. So that this could happen.
Very cool, man. Well, we'll let you go, let you run. We appreciate the time. Why don't you let the people know where to find you? Website, internet, phone number, homing pigeon.
All right. We're at GS Homes CA. So gshomesca.com. Also greensystemsenergy.com. And, the phone number is 747-413-5539. I think.
well, I guess maybe we'll look it up. We'll put it in the description if it.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think.
Well, I'm thinking, do I give him my cell phone number? It's my work cell, but I am the person that normally we contact.
We're at like hundreds of listeners, not tens of thousands. So you're not going to get blown up.
Not too bad. I don't see that. Well, for those hundreds of listeners, hope you enjoyed it. This is all good information that you guys are providing. I appreciate that because
we love
listened to your podcast.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We talk to contractors all the time, so we enjoy getting to do it in a space where everybody else gets to listen because we have fun doing it. So
great.
It works twofold.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Barry. We appreciate it a lot. Have a good day. Be safe, and hopefully we'll catch up later.
Yeah. Thanks, Barry.
Same to you guys. Thanks.
Yep. Have a good one. Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, and check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.